The galaxy's leaders were stunned when the human sniper called them out. "You attacked our home." The Galactic Council chamber stretched across 3 kilometers of polished crystalline floor, its vaulted ceiling disappearing into artificial stars that mimic the home systems of 100 different species. Representatives from across the known galaxy sat in their designated sections, each area carefully climate-controlled and atmospherically adjusted for their specific needs. The Zephyrians floated in their methane-filled bubbles, while the rock-like Petroans sat motionless on heated stone platforms. The insectoid Vexhi chittered among themselves, their translator units converting their clicks into standard galactic speech. At the center of this magnificent assembly sat the 5 members of the High Council, the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Chancellor Morthak of the Hegemony dominated the central throne, his 4 arms gesturing as he spoke. To his right, Admiral Zexara of the Stellar Navy adjusted her breathing apparatus, her aquatic form shimmering behind protective barriers. The other 3 council members, representing the Mining Consortium, the Trade Federation, and the Scientific Collective, listened with the bored expressions of those who had heard countless similar sessions. Today's agenda was routine: reports on mineral extraction quotas, trade route security updates, and territorial boundary adjustments. The galaxy hummed along with mechanical precision, each species playing their assigned role in the great machine of galactic civilization. The humans, those strange bipeds from the 3rd spiral arm, had been quiet for months since their recent inclusion into the galactic community. Most council members had already forgotten about them. Chancellor Morthak was mid-sentence, discussing shipping lane regulations, when the chamber's security alert chimed softly. A single figure materialized on the transportation pad at the far end of the hall. The being was clearly human, bipedal, roughly 2 meters tall, with the pale skin and brown hair typical of their species. What made the assembly pause was not his appearance, but what he carried. The human held a rifle unlike anything the council had seen before. It was sleek, matte black, with strange geometric patterns etched along its length. Most weapons in civilized space were energy-based, clean, and efficient. This device looked primitive by comparison, yet something about its design suggested lethal effectiveness. The human's clothing was equally unusual, form-fitting dark fabric that seemed to absorb light, with equipment strapped to various points on his body. Security protocols should have prevented any unauthorized being from entering the chamber, let alone with weapons. The Hegemony's finest guards stood at attention around the perimeter, their plasma rifles charging with audible whines. Yet the humans stood calmly, seemingly unbothered by the hundreds of weapons now pointed at him. "Halt!" Admiral Zexara's voice boomed through the chamber's acoustic enhancement system. "Identify yourself and state your purpose. You are in violation of 17 galactic statutes by bringing a weapon into this sacred space." The human's response was quiet, but somehow his voice carried to every corner of the vast chamber. "My name is Marcus Chen, Sergeant, Human Colonial Defense Corps. I'm here to deliver a message." Chancellor Morthak's primary eyes narrowed, while his secondary eyes continued scanning security readouts. "Human, you will surrender your primitive weapon immediately. Guards, contain this intruder." The nearest guard, a hulking Brutok warrior, stepped forward. What happened next occurred so quickly that most beings in the chamber missed it entirely. The human's rifle moved with fluid precision. A sound like controlled thunder echoed through the hall, and suddenly the Brutok guard was missing his right arm. The appendage lay smoking several meters away, severed with surgical precision. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives dove for cover, security alarms wailed, and protective barriers activated around the High Council's platform. Yet the human remained motionless, his weapon now pointed directly at Chancellor Morthak's head. I said I have a message to deliver, Marcus Chen repeated, his voice cutting through the din. And you're all going to listen. Admiral Zexera was frantically tapping commands into her console. Security Lockdown Protocol 7, activate defensive systems. How did this primitive get past our sensors? Your sensors work fine, Marcus replied conversationally. They detected everything I wanted them to detect. What they missed were the things I didn't want them to see. The security chief, a six-armed hexapod named Clixtar, scuttled closer to the council platform. Impossible. Our technology is centuries ahead of human development. You've barely achieved faster-than-light travel. Marcus smiled, though there was no warmth in the expression. Centuries ahead in some ways, maybe, but you've forgotten how to fight. How to really fight. When was the last time any of you faced an enemy who didn't follow your rules? Who didn't broadcast their intentions or file proper attack formations? He gestured with his free hand toward the cowering assembly. Look at you. The most powerful beings in the galaxy, and one human with an primitive rifle, has you all hiding behind your barriers. Chancellor Morthak's voice carried forced authority. Speak your message, human, then surrender yourself for processing. Your violation of sacred law demands— Sacred law? Marcus's laugh was harsh. You want to talk about law? Then let's discuss the unauthorized bombardment of human agricultural colonies in the Kepler system 3 months ago. A sudden silence fell over the chamber. Many representatives exchanged worried glances. The Kepler incident had been classified at the highest levels. Admiral Zexara's gills fluttered nervously. I don't know what misinformation you've received, but the Stellar Navy has conducted no operations in human space. Misinformation? Marcus reached into his equipment pack with his free hand, never letting his rifle waver from the Chancellor. He produced a small device that projected a three-dimensional image into the air above the assembly. The hologram showed a peaceful agricultural world, green fields stretching to horizons dotted with human settlements. Then ships appeared in the sky, unmistakably vessels from the Galactic Navy's 7th Fleet. Energy beams lanced down from orbit, reducing farmland to smoking craters. Emergency broadcasts crackled through the projection as human colonists fled in terror. 13,000 civilians, Marcus said quietly. Men, women, children. Killed because some mining consortium representative decided our wheat fields would make better extraction sites. Council member Vexkoth of the mining consortium shifted nervously in his crystal chamber. Those were administrative errors. The paperwork clearly showed uninhabited worlds suitable for development. Administrative errors. Marcus repeated the words like they tasted bitter. 13,000 human souls reduced to paperwork errors. The projection continued, showing the aftermath. Rescue ships arriving to find nothing but glass craters where towns had stood. Human mothers weeping over the ashes of their children, fathers staring at empty fields where generations of their families had built homes. We filed formal protests through proper diplomatic channels, Marcus continued. We requested compensation. We demanded justice. And what did we receive in return? He activated another section of his device. A bureaucratic form appeared in the air, stamped with official seals. A bill, Marcus said. The Galactic Council billed us for cleanup costs and demanded reparations for damage to naval vessels caused by debris from our destroyed settlements. Murmurs of unease rippled through the assembly. Many representatives were seeing this information for the first time. The sanitized reports they'd received had spoken of clearing unused land for mining operations, with no mention of civilian casualties. Chancellor Morthak's voice was carefully controlled. If mistakes were made, proper procedures exist for addressing such concerns. This dramatic display serves no purpose. Proper procedures? Marcus's rifle moved slightly and the Chancellor flinched. We tried your procedures. For 3 months, we sent delegations, filed appeals, requested audiences. We were told to wait, to be patient. that the galactic bureaucracy would address our concerns in due time. He gestured toward the assembled representatives. How many of you even knew about Kepler? How many of your species would tolerate such an attack on your home worlds? The question hung in the air. Several representatives looked uncomfortable, their attention focused anywhere but on the human with the rifle. The Zephyrians fought a century-long war when the hegemony accidentally destroyed a single weather monitoring station, Marcus continued. The Vex-High exterminated an entire species for mining rights disputes. The Petroans shattered 3 star systems rather than accept unfavorable trade agreements. Each statement was punctuated by increasingly nervous movements from the mentioned species representatives. But humans? Marcus's voice grew cold. We're expected to accept genocide as an administrative error and wait patiently for your procedures to maybe, possibly someday provide justice. Admiral Zexara was slowly reaching for something beneath her console. Marcus's rifle swung toward her with mechanical precision. I wouldn't, Admiral. Whatever you're reaching for, it won't be faster than this trigger. She froze, her hand hovering over what was clearly an emergency weapon. You see, that's the problem with being the apex predators of the galaxy for so long, Marcus said conversationally. You've forgotten that sometimes prey fights back. Security Chief Clixtar's multiple arms were gesturing frantically at his subordinates, trying to coordinate some kind of response. Marcus noticed but seemed. The silence that followed Marcus's declaration stretched across the chamber like a physical weight. Representatives who moments before had been chattering about trade regulations now sat frozen in their seats, processing the implications of what they'd just witnessed. The human hadn't just violated galactic law, he had demonstrated that their most sacred assumptions about power and security were built on foundations of sand. Chancellor Morthak's 4 arms moved in what his species considered a gesture of supreme authority, but the tremor in his primary hands betrayed his growing unease. Human, your threats ring hollow. You are one being against the combined might of 1,000 worlds. Even if you somehow breach our security, even if you harm council members, you cannot escape this chamber alive. Marcus tilted his head slightly, as if considering this point. You know, Chancellor, that's exactly what Admiral Kethran said when our fleet approached the mining operation at Vega Prime. The blood drained from Admiral Zexara's face, or at least, the aquatic equivalent occurred as her bioluminescent patches dimmed noticeably. Vega Prime? That's impossible. We received no reports of human fleet movements in that sector. Of course you didn't. Marcus's smile was patient, almost educational. Tell me, Admiral, when was the last time you actually verified the status of your outer mining operations? Not the scheduled reports, actual verification. The Admiral's gills fluttered rapidly as she accessed her command console with shaking hands. Her expression grew increasingly horrified as data scrolled across her screens. This cannot be accurate, she whispered. Vega Prime, Rigel Station, the Centauri extraction facilities, 27 installations showing no response. 28, actually, Marcus corrected. The Proxima refinery went dark about an hour ago. Right around the time I materialized in your chamber. The chamber erupted in panicked conversations. Representatives were frantically contacting their homeworlds, their voices rising in pitch as confirmations came back. Mining operations that had been producing steadily for decades were simply gone. No distress signals, no recorded attacks, no debris fields. Just empty space where massive industrial complexes had once operated. Council member Vexkoth of the Mining Consortium was particularly agitated, his crystalline form shifting through spectrum of colors that indicated extreme distress. Impossible! Our installations have the most advanced defensive systems in the galaxy. Automated hunter-killer satellites, force field generators, garrison fleets. Had, Marcus corrected gently. Past tense is important here. He activated his holographic projector again, but this time the images were recent, timestamp showing they'd been recorded within the last 72 hours. The projection showed a typical mining station, massive and bristling with weapons. Then human ships appeared at the edge of the sensor range. But these weren't the crude vessels the galaxy expected from humanity. These ships moved with predatory grace, their hulls dark and angular, seeming to bend light around them. As the galactic defenders opened fire, the human vessels simply weren't there anymore. They flickered in and out of visibility like ghosts, their return fire precisely targeted. "Stealth technology," Admiral Zexara breathed. "But that's impossible. We've had sensor networks that could detect cloaked vessels for millennia." "Your sensors detect energy signatures, gravitational distortions, and electromagnetic emissions," Marcus explained. "But what if a ship generates no significant energy signature? What if it uses gravitational manipulation instead of traditional propulsion? What if its hull is designed to absorb and redirect electromagnetic radiation rather than reflect it?" The projection showed mining station after mining station falling to these phantom fleets. Defenses that had seemed impregnable proved useless against enemies that appeared from nowhere, struck with surgical precision and vanished before retaliation was possible. "Where did you get this technology?" Chancellor Morthak demanded. "Human science is centuries behind ours." Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You keep saying that, but you've never actually studied human development, have you? You looked at our initial contact protocols, saw that we'd just achieved faster-than-light travel, and filed us under primitive newcomers. Case closed." He gestured toward the ongoing projections. "But what you didn't bother to investigate was why we achieved FTL travel so quickly after our first space flights. Most species take thousands of years to progress from orbit to interstellar travel. We did it in less than a century." The representatives were paying close attention now, their panic momentarily replaced by curiosity. "Humans are persistence hunters, Chancellor. When we want something, we don't give up. Ever. When we encountered our first alien probe in our solar system 50 years ago, we didn't just reverse engineer your technology, we improved on it. We found the flaws you'd stopped noticing. We eliminated the inefficiencies you'd learned to accept." Council member Thex Ali of the Scientific Collective leaned forward in her environmental suit. "Even so, 50 years is insufficient time to develop such advanced capabilities. Our scientists have worked for millennia to perfect stealth technology." "Your scientists work within the established parameters of galactic science," Marcus replied. "They follow protocols, file research proposals, wait for committee approval. Human scientists are different." The projection shifted to show the interior of what was clearly a human research facility. But unlike the sterile, committee-approved laboratories of galactic civilization, this space looked more like organized chaos. Human researchers worked around the clock, their experiments running in parallel rather than sequence. Failed prototypes were cannibalized for useful components within hours of abandonment. Theoretical research proceeded alongside practical applications without waiting for formal approval. You see, we approached your technology the same way our ancestors approached every other challenge they faced. We didn't just want to understand it, we wanted to master it, control it, make it better. Admiral Zexara was still scrolling through status reports, her expression growing more distressed with each confirmation. Even with advanced technology, 28 major installations, the logistics alone should have taken months. Months? Marcus seemed genuinely surprised. "Admiral, you're thinking in terms of traditional galactic warfare. Massive fleets, extended sieges, formal declarations. Humans learned warfare on a world where resources were scarce and enemies were clever. We learned to strike fast, hit hard, and disappear before the enemy could respond. The projection showed the internal structure of a typical galactic mining facility, massive, redundant systems designed for efficiency and safety. Multiple command centers, backup power sources, emergency protocols that had been refined over centuries of peaceful operation. "Your installations are marvels of engineering," Marcus admitted. "They can withstand asteroid impacts, solar flares, even direct assault from conventional weapons. But they were designed by species that had forgotten how to fight dirty." The image zoomed in on seemingly insignificant details: cooling systems, communication relays, power distribution networks. Humans see different things than you do. Where you see backup systems, we see single points of failure. Where you see redundant command structures, we see bureaucratic delays. Where you see protective barriers, we see things that can be turned against their creators. The projection showed human infiltration teams moving through maintenance tunnels that galactic engineers had assumed were too small for sapient beings. Emergency protocols that locked down facilities to protect them from external threats were triggered from the inside, trapping defenders while human forces struck from unexpected directions. "But the casualties," Councilmember Vexkoth protested weakly. "Surely thousands of workers—" Marcus's expression hardened. "Were evacuated safely to designated emergency stations, where they're currently being processed and returned to their homeworlds. Humans don't wage war against civilians, consortium member. We're not monsters." The relief that flashed across several faces was quickly replaced by confusion. "Then what was the purpose?" Chancellor Morthak asked. "If not conquest, if not slaughter, what do you gain from destroying our infrastructure?" "Understanding," Marcus replied simply. "For 3 months, we asked politely for justice. We followed your procedures, respected your laws, waited patiently for bureaucracy to function. And what did that teach us?" He gestured toward the assembled representatives. "It taught us that the galaxy operates on a very simple principle. Power determines worth. The strong do what they will, the weak suffer what they must. You couldn't comprehend humans as a threat, so human suffering didn't matter." Admiral Zexara was frantically coordinating with her fleet commanders, her voice carrying across the chamber's audio pickup. "Immediate deployment to all strategic sectors. Full alert status. Implement Security Protocol Omega." Marcus listened to her orders with apparent interest. "Admiral, you're deploying your forces to protect installations that human forces evacuated hours ago. By the time your ships arrive, there will be nothing left to defend." "Then what do you want?" Chancellor Morthak's composure was cracking entirely now. "You've made your point. Human capabilities exceed our estimations. You can strike at our infrastructure, but surely reasonable beings can negotiate." "Negotiate?" Marcus's rifle remained steady, pointing directly at the Chancellor's head. 3 months ago, we would have been delighted to negotiate. We would have accepted minimal compensation, formal apologies, assurances that such administrative errors would be prevented. We believed in galactic justice. His voice grew colder with each word. "But you taught us that justice isn't given, it's taken. You taught us that in this galaxy, respect comes from fear, not from friendship. You taught us that the only way to ensure human safety is human strength." The projection changed again, now showing human industrial facilities that hadn't existed in any galactic database. Massive shipyards, research centers, training facilities, all hidden in the dark spaces between stars where galactic civilization didn't bother to look. "While we waited for your justice, we prepared for your betrayal. Every day you delayed, every procedural roadblock you created, every condescending explanation about how newcomers must be patient, it all taught us exactly what we needed to know about our place in your galaxy." Council member Thexali was studying the projection intently. "The scale of construction, this represents industrial capacity that shouldn't exist. Our economic models show human worlds lack the resources for such development." Your economic models assume we're playing by your rules, Marcus replied. They assume we're limiting ourselves to officially registered colonies, approved trade routes, established mining rights. They assume we're asking permission. The implications hit the assembled representatives like a physical blow. If humans had been developing hidden infrastructure for months, if they had industrial capacity that existed outside galactic oversight. How many? Admiral Zexara's voice was barely above a whisper. How many ships? How many installations? How many humans? Marcus smiled, and for the first time there was genuine warmth in the expression. Admiral, that's exactly the right question. And the terrifying thing is, you're about to find out. The chamber's environmental systems had grown noticeably quieter, as if the massive structure itself was holding its breath. Emergency lights cast harsh shadows across the faces of representatives who were beginning to understand that they were witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. A single human, armed with what they had dismissed as primitive technology, had not just breached their security, he had revealed that everything they thought they knew about humanity was wrong. Marcus Chen stood calmly in the center of it all, his rifle still trained on Chancellor Morthak, while with his free hand he manipulated the holographic display. The projection now showed a three-dimensional map of the galaxy, with familiar trade routes, military installations, and planetary systems marked in the standard galactic database colors. But overlaying this familiar map was another network entirely. Thin lines connecting points of light in previously empty space, creating a shadow infrastructure that had been growing invisibly for months. You want to know how many ships, Admiral? Marcus asked conversationally. Let me show you something interesting about human psychology. When we feel threatened, we don't just build defenses. We build redundancies. We plan for worst-case scenarios. We prepare for wars we hope we'll never have to fight. The projection zoomed in on what appeared to be an empty section of space near the galactic rim. Suddenly, the darkness flickered and resolved into massive structures, shipyards that dwarfed anything in the official galactic databases. Thousands of vessels hung in various stages of construction, their designs unlike anything the assembled representatives had seen before. Council member Vexkoth's crystalline form was cycling through rapid color changes indicating extreme agitation. Impossible! Our deep space sensors would have detected construction on this scale. Your sensors detect what they're programmed to look for, Marcus replied patiently. Energy signatures from known propulsion systems, electromagnetic emissions from standard industrial processes, gravitational disturbances from conventional mining operations. But what if human technology works differently? The projection showed the construction process in detail. Human shipyards that operated in complete electromagnetic silence, their power drawn from hidden taps into nearby stars through gravitic manipulation that produced no detectable signatures. Mining operations that extracted materials from asteroid fields using molecular disassembly techniques that left no trace of industrial activity. We learned from the best teachers in the galaxy, Marcus continued. You. Every piece of technology we encountered, every interaction with galactic civilization, every bureaucratic delay, it all taught us exactly what we needed to know about your capabilities and limitations. Admiral Zexara was frantically coordinating with her intelligence services, her voice growing more strained with each report she received. Negative on all sensor sweeps, no confirmation of human fleet movements in any monitored sectors. How are they avoiding detection? Because we're not moving through monitored sectors, Admiral. We're not using established jump points or following approved navigation routes. Human vessels travel through the empty spaces between your civilized areas using gravitational slingshot techniques that require no energy signature and leave no hyperspace wake. The projection shifted to show human ships moving through what appeared to be completely empty space. But as the display enhanced the view, it became clear that these vessels were following precise gravitational currents. riding the complex interactions between stellar bodies like surfers on cosmic waves. While your species spent millennia perfecting faster-than-light travel, you forgot the elegance of ballistic trajectories. Human ships can cross the galaxy without ever appearing on your sensors because we're not breaking your laws of physics. We're using them more cleverly than you ever imagined. Chancellor Morthak attempted to reassert authority, his four arms gesturing in patterns that had once commanded fleets. Even if your claims are accurate, human, you cannot threaten the entire galactic community. Our combined forces number in the millions. Our industrial capacity spans thousands of worlds. Yes, Marcus agreed. And every single one of those worlds follows the same patterns, the same security protocols, the same technological assumptions, the same strategic thinking that's kept the galaxy peaceful for centuries. The projection now showed a detailed analysis of galactic military deployment, massive fleets positioned to defend against conventional threats, patrol routes that covered established shipping lanes, defensive installations that protected important systems using traditional military doctrine. Your forces are magnificent, Chancellor, perfectly designed to fight the last war. Unfortunately for you, humans don't fight the last war. We fight the next one. The display zoomed in on a typical galactic defense fleet, hundreds of massive vessels in formal battle formations, their energy signatures blazing like stars. Then human ships appeared at the edge of the tactical display, not in formation, not following any recognizable strategic doctrine, but moving like a pack of predators stalking their prey. Galactic military doctrine is based on territorial defense and force projection. You build bigger guns, thicker armor, stronger shields. But humans learned warfare from a very different perspective. We learned to hunt. The tactical simulation played out in real time. The galactic fleet moved to intercept the human vessels, following standard engagement protocols. Energy weapons fired at maximum range, seeking to establish superior firepower. But the human ships simply weren't there when the beams arrived. They flickered in and out of detection, appearing just long enough to deliver precise strikes before vanishing again. You see? The problem with your military thinking is that you're fighting machines, Marcus explained. You calculate optimal firing solutions, coordinate fleet movements, follow tactical doctrines developed over centuries of practice. Very logical, very efficient, very predictable. The simulation showed galactic commanders attempting to adapt their strategies, but each new approach was countered before it could be implemented. Human forces seemed to anticipate every tactical adjustment, responding with innovations that shouldn't have been possible. But humans don't fight like machines. We improvise. We adapt. We learn from every engagement and change our methods accordingly. And most importantly, we understand that the goal of warfare isn't to win battles. It's to break the enemy's will to fight. Admiral Zexara was staring at the tactical display in growing horror. Even with these advantages, the numbers are overwhelming. Human population counts show fewer than 50 billion individuals across all your colonies. The galaxy contains trillions of sapient beings. True, Marcus acknowledged. Which is why we're not interested in conquest. We don't want to rule the galaxy, Admiral. We just want to make sure the galaxy understands what happens when it threatens human interests. The projection shifted to show a new type of display. Communication networks, data flows, economic connections that bound the galactic community together. The complex web of relationships that made interstellar civilization possible. You know what we discovered while studying your society? How incredibly dependent it's become on cooperation. Your species haven't fought real wars in so long that you've forgotten how vulnerable civilization is when it's disrupted. Red markers began appearing throughout the display, highlighting critical junction points in galactic infrastructure. Communication relays, manufacturing centers, resource distribution hubs, all the invisible systems that kept thousands of worlds functioning as a unified community. Humans don't need to conquer worlds, Admiral. We just need to interrupt the systems that make those worlds livable. No invasions, no occupation forces, no massive casualties. Just the gentle application of pressure at exactly the right points. Council member Thexali was studying the display with the focused attention of someone finally grasping the scope of the threat. The cascading failures. If even a small percentage of these systems were disrupted simultaneously, famine, Marcus said simply, economic collapse, communication breakdown, the kind of chaos that turns civilized species into desperate refugees within months. And the beautiful thing is, from your perspective, we never directly attack anyone. We just interfere with logistics. Chancellor Morthak's composure had completely cracked now. His primary arms shook as he accessed emergency protocols, trying to coordinate a response to a threat he was only beginning to understand. You're describing the collapse of galactic civilization. Trillions of beings would suffer. Yes, Marcus replied calmly. Exactly the way 13,000 humans suffered on Kepler. Except instead of an administrative error, this would be a deliberate choice by the galactic leadership to prioritize their authority over their citizens' welfare. The assembled representatives were beginning to panic in earnest now. Emergency communications were flooding into the chamber as various species governments demanded explanations for the growing crisis. Mining operations across 3 sectors had gone silent. Deep space sensor networks were reporting impossible readings. Economic analysts were projecting resource shortfalls that would affect hundreds of worlds within weeks. "What do you want?" Admiral Zexara's voice cracked with desperation. "Name your terms. Surely this can be resolved without destroying everything we've built." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, his rifle never wavering from its target. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. "What I want is very simple, Admiral. I want the galaxy to understand that humanity is not asking for permission anymore. We're not requesting consideration or begging for justice. We're not going to wait patiently while bureaucrats decide whether human lives matter." He gestured toward the ongoing chaos in the chamber. "This is humanity serving notice that the age of treating us as insignificant newcomers is over. We've studied your civilization, learned your weaknesses, and developed the capabilities necessary to protect our interests. Whether the galaxy chooses to respect those interests peacefully or learns to respect them through consequences is entirely up to you." Chancellor Morthak made one final attempt at authority. "The combined military might of the galaxy will not be intimidated by terrorist tactics." Marcus smiled, and there was something genuinely sad in the expression. "Chancellor, you still don't understand. This isn't terrorism. This isn't even warfare in any sense you would recognize. This is just a demonstration of capability, a preview of what human determination can accomplish when properly motivated." The projection changed one final time, showing real-time tactical displays from across the galaxy. Human ships were emerging from hiding places that shouldn't have existed, appearing in systems that were supposed to be impossible to reach, demonstrating technological capabilities that rendered galactic military doctrine obsolete. The ships you're seeing represent perhaps 5% of current human naval capacity. The installations we've revealed are a fraction of our actual industrial development. The tactical advantages we've demonstrated are just the ones we wanted you to know about. The representatives sat in stunned silence as the implications sank in. They weren't witnessing the beginning of a war. They were witnessing the revelation that the war was already over, and they had never realized it was being fought. "So here's what happens next," Marcus continued. "The galaxy is going to provide full reparations for the Kepler incident, not as charity, not as bureaucratic compensation, but as acknowledgement that human lives have value. You're going to establish formal diplomatic relations with humanity as an equal partner, not as newcomers seeking membership in your club." His voice grew harder. "And most importantly, you're going to remember this moment. You're going to remember that underestimating humanity once cost you the galaxy's peace. You're going to make sure it never happens again." He began backing toward the transportation pad, his weapon still covering the High Council. "Oh, and one more thing. The next time someone files a formal complaint about injustice, you might want to address it promptly, because the galaxy just learned what happens when humans run out of patience." The transportation beam began to coalesce around him. "The choice is yours, Chancellor. Peace with respect, or peace through exhaustion. But either way, there will be peace." Marcus Chen disappeared in a flash of light, leaving behind a chamber full of the galaxy's most powerful beings, who had just discovered they weren't as powerful as they'd believed. The age of galactic supremacy was over. The age of human determination had begun. And in the silence that followed, one truth echoed through every mind in the chamber. They should have answered the formal complaint. Ed unconcerned. "Your guards are wondering why their weapons won't fire," he observed. "Electromagnetic pulse, targeted frequency disruption. Amazing what you can accomplish when you understand the enemy's technology better than they do." Chancellor Morthak's confidence was visibly cracking. "What do you want, human?" What could possibly justify this violation of every law governing civilized behavior? Marcus was quiet for a long moment, his eyes moving across the assembled representatives. When he spoke again, his voice carried a weight that made hardened warriors shift uncomfortably. "What I want is very simple, Chancellor. I want you to understand that humanity is no longer asking for justice. We're not filing appeals or waiting for bureaucratic procedures. We're not going to be patient while you decide whether our lives matter." He paused, letting that sink in. "What I want is for you to know that the age of treating humans as insignificant newcomers is over. We've studied you, learned your weaknesses, understood your overconfidence. And we've decided that if the galaxy won't grant us the respect we deserve—" The rifle's barrel gleamed in the chamber's artificial starlight. "We'll take it.